Hi there, COM426 students. Well, welcome back to semester 2, and this video is a replacement for today's session because, as you might have seen if you've looked out the window, it's snowing, and that's fantastic, but I know it can make travel a little bit difficult. So rather than us having a lab session and making you stay here till 4 o'clock, there's some exercises you can get on with at home, and these will help improve your knowledge of programming and help with the sessions that we'll be running next week. So starting next week, we're going to start looking at building graphical applications, and we'll use C# and something called WPF to create this. And this will extend our knowledge of creating C++ applications because most of the syntax for programming is exactly the same. So there's this great website that I wanted to show you, which is called learncs.org. And this takes you through some of the basics, the things that we've run through before using C++, but you can go through them again using C#. And you don't even need to have Visual Studio installed to do this. You can just do it straight from the browser. So to start off with, here's our first example down here, the classic programming Hello World. It prints out Hello World on the console. So it's just like we did back in week 1 of semester 1 in C++ as well. So we've got our code already created here. We can click on Run, and you see on the right hand side it will pop up. There we go, we've got our output on the console. So you'll see that C# is very similar to using C++ like we did during the previous semester. We've got our using system. That's the same as the using namespace. We've also still got our main function. If you remember, we had int main in C++, exactly the same. We've got void main here in C#. And this is a place where all of your code will go that you want to run when we run the application. You'll also notice something else. We've got console.writeLine. And this does exactly the same thing as that cout does in C++ when we're writing out to the screen. So this would have probably been written something like this. Cout hello world. Would have written something like that in C++. In C#, we've got these extra functions, console.writeLine, that will help us to do that, and it creates it in a much simpler way for us to understand how that programming works. So just as we had when we were doing C++, we can output different things. We can create different variables and use them within what we're doing. So let's say we've got an integer, a number. Say integer a is 7. Let's say we want to write that out. Well, we can say hello world, and then we can add on the end our a. And this is an easy way that we get our output, and we can output that integer. So just like in C++, we have a whole set of variables and types. And there's some exercises here that you can go through to look at how to create those different types and a refresher for my C++. We even have things here like sums. Maybe something to look at is, as well as doing a sum, like this, which we don't output, so we can do console.writeLine sum to output that sum. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. We can also change that, so we can do things like multiply for more complex setups as well. We also in C# still have things like enums, and you might remember an enum, an enumerated value, is where we have a whole set of values that we want to use for a variable. In this case, we've got types of cars. You might remember from your assignment 1 that we had the suits in the pack of cards that were in an enum as well. So you can play about with this, maybe even change that example for packs of cards and see how that works. And there's some exercises here on that as well. So let's go back to the first page, and you'll see that you can carry on with some of these exercises. We've done conditionals before. So conditionals are if, else, switch, those kinds of constructs. We've done arrays where we have square brackets to access the items in that array. We've also done for loops and while loops, so have a look at those as a refresher. And if you finish all of that and you still want to keep on going with C#, start to have a look at the basic classes. And this is something that we'll cover in week 3, but you could begin to work through what a class is and how that construct is there and how that will help us to create programs with a better structure when we start to look at object-oriented code. So through this website, there's lots of examples of C# to start having a look at. And this will be a great refresher from the C++ we did in semester 1. You can have a look at some of the differences between the two languages, and you can get your code running here in the browser without even needing to install Visual Studio. So I'll still be around by email if you've got any questions this afternoon or before the next session. And we'll go through some of these activities during next week's session in week 2. So you'll have a chance to ask any questions during the session as well. Just means you don't have to struggle and get in the snow. You might as well sit at home, stay warm, and get on with a little bit of programming as well. So have fun.